Okay, it looks like majority of people are with us. People joining have slowed down, so anyone that joins from here on in will have missed the beginning. So thank you to all who have joined us today for our latest small business risk review. So we'll be looking at obviously Q1 2018 today. As always, my name's Patrick. I'm the Managing Director at CreditorWatch. We'll send out the slides. Feel free to connect with me on LinkedIn. Shoot me a message with any suggestions. I've got a couple of things that I'll ask of you at the end of the webinar today. But as always, we're very open to feedback from attendees, customers, prospects alike. So please don't be shy. So before we get started, we do have that Q&A box available in the GoToWebinar control panel. So feel free to ask questions. We do have, I think we've got 1 or 2 people on board today assisting with those questions. So if you do feel that you want to ask something or flag something, ask away. If we don't get back to you straight away, we will get back to you in time. So I appreciate your patience there. We can't always get to everyone, particularly if we get a lot of questions, or if it's a little bit more of a complex or complicated question and answer. We prefer sometimes to just pick up the phone and talk through it rather than going backwards and forwards on the little messaging box that GoToWebinar provides. And of course, slides and webinar recordings will be sent out within 24 hours, usually 48, but I'm going to put a little bit more pressure on the marketing team to get that out as soon as possible. So the agenda today, I'll touch on, again, CreditorWatch, a little bit about who we are, what we do. We've got plenty of new people joining us today. So for those that are customers or have joined us for webinars in the past, apologize if there's a little bit of doubling up. However, there's plenty of people who may not be completely aware about who CreditorWatch is and what it is that we do. I'll touch on exactly what the small business risk review is, where we get the data from, and what you can expect from it. A quick little poll just to see how everyone is seeing trading conditions out there. I think I've asked for Q1, but we can just talk about this year in general because we have kicked off a little bit later than usual with our webinar for our small business risk review. And then, of course, we'll get into the results themselves. Okay. So a little bit about CreditorWatch. We're Australia's leading commercial credit reporting bureau with over 50,000 customers across Australia. These are made up of businesses of all sizes. So we have, sole traders, small businesses, all the way through to ASIC listed companies. Regardless of how big you are, how many customers you have, how small you are, if you've only got 1 customer, we have solutions for you that range, across your standard credit reporting, customer alerts for when they get into difficulty. We'll send you email alerts before they hopefully cause an issue for your business. Debt collection tools, other subscription products that we've introduced in the last couple of years, CreditorWatch Plus, which assists with having a look at your entire portfolio as a whole and comparing how you're getting paid compared to how your customers are paying the rest of the market. Bankruptcy Plus is a brand new product that no doubt plenty of you have received emails about or even joined us for webinars in the past. Sorry, I realized I had that pause there. You should be able to see the slides now. Bankruptcy Plus, as I said, is our newest product, and what it does, it appends a warning to a sole trader reports and also against directors if they have had a bankruptcy, been bankrupt, or are currently bankrupt. So it's a great new tool to take advantage of. Do speak to us if you're interested in giving it a try. Really important to know exactly who the people are behind a business or a company, rather than just relying on the commercial information. And then Apply Easy, of course, plenty of those out there. It's our online credit application. And again, we can have that set up for you to trial using your own credit application itself within sort of 48 to 72 hours. What it does is basically replicates your current paper-based credit application form, allows customers to apply online, automate all the credit checks, look at the directors, the entities behind it, that sort of thing, give you a thumbs up, thumbs down, and allow you to communicate back to the customer saying that they have been approved or rejected, etc. That is then linked with your CreditorWatch account, so automatically starts monitoring those customers as well when you approve them. So a little bit about the small business risk review. Our small business risk review is done on a quarterly basis, as you're all very much aware, and we're aggregating data from a number of sources, as well as trade payment information as well. So we want to be able to give you a fairly black and white indication of trends or insights that we're seeing each quarter. We don't typically append or add additional commentary around that. It is something that we're looking at. There has been feedback that people would like to see or to hear, why are these trends taking place? Why are these, why is it going up? Why is it going down? What's the greater impact on the economy? Or is the economy, creating that? And is it something we should be aware of? So we will look at introducing some guest speakers in our next, hopefully our next small business risk review webinar that we do. Someone, who probably comes from an economic commerce background, a CFO, that sort of thing as well. So stay tuned for that. But ultimately what we want to do, and what we've always done to date, is just provide you with the data that we're seeing and allow you to, take that on board and potentially adjust the risk that you're taking within your business, depending on, where you are in Australia, the industry you're in, and the types of businesses that you're trading with. So the data that we're getting, obviously ASIC and the Australian Business Register, court actions from around Australia, that's judgments, summons and writs, insolvency notices, debt collection notices, and also, of course, data that comes from our 50,000 plus customers in the form of payment defaults and trade payment data, both of which are obviously unique to CreditorWatch. There's the link in there, download the Q1 2018 risk review, which takes you through to a nice PDF that we have. This will probably be the last version of this style. We're going to change it up a bit because I think we've been going with this for probably 3 or 4 now. Really easy, nice to print out, stick up, share, that sort of thing. Gives you some nice, pretty insights into what CreditorWatch is seeing and how we're aggregating all of that information together. So let's jump into a quick poll. And the question I've got for you is, what sort of trading conditions have you experienced so far this year? So I just want to kind of get an idea of, what are you guys seeing out there? We're looking at fairly high level information across, states and national databases. What is it that, you guys are seeing out there? Is it positive? Is it negative? Is it neutral? In that, I think it's been fairly consistent versus, what you were experiencing last year, or unknown, haven't noticed. Please don't be afraid to tick that one. We're all extremely busy, and it's not uncommon to just sort of plow ahead and not take a whole lot of notice about, what has been going on, or realize that, hey, it's better than it was last year or worse. Give it another couple of seconds. All right, most of you have voted there. Thank you. So I'll close this down, share some results. So a bit of a mix there. There's not a whole lot to look into here. Obviously, 42% of you saying neutral. If you look at the 14% that have saying unknown, you would assume that potentially the majority of those people haven't seen anything, because it's remained the same. Nothing's really jumping out at them in a negative or positive. But there are 20% of you seeing a positive improvement or even a negative downgrade in trading conditions as well. So I appreciate that, and I think it's something that we've discussed internally, is looking at how can we potentially include our customer input into these small business risk reviews as well, because ultimately, anyone who's either a small business themselves or trading with small businesses, you're at the coalface. So it would be good to to actually reach out to you and get some, these sort of surveys, polls ahead of our small business risk reviews, and try to include that in future releases that we do. So thank you for that. So I just wanted to say, just before we jumped into the small business risk review itself, as I mentioned, we were a little bit later delivering this webinar than we have been in the past. Usually we try to have the webinar within the first 2 weeks of that new quarter, so we're reporting, fairly timely. So a few things this year that pushed us back a little bit. So if you were hanging out for it, I apologise. But yeah, we should be back on track, reporting on Q2 in the first couple of weeks of July. The other thing I wanted to say in general about this small business risk review, and I'm not sure if many of you or if any of you saw, we've already put out a release and an article on our blog talking about the review itself, and that was back at the middle of April there. It's a very positive review that we're seeing. When we go through the stats and whatnot, we're going to see that everything is either improving or it's remaining fairly consistent versus this Q1 2017. So comparing it to last year, which is a great thing. And there are plenty of other surveys out there that the banks release, and Xero do a really good one as well. They've got some fantastic data that they're able to pull from their customer base, and everyone's kind of seeing the same thing. So it's definitely a positive thing. However, each report that I've looked at, and our one included, which I'll touch on, it does show some small signs of potential negatives coming through. And in our case, that comes through in our payment defaults. We've certainly seen an increase in those, and typically what we see when there's an increase in payment defaults is a domino effect into court actions, and then ultimately failing businesses and companies as well. But let's have a look at each of the states, starting with Queensland and their court actions. So again, as I said, fairly positive here. We've seen a reduction in the number of court actions versus Q1 2017, and we've seen a 1%, so almost not really something to worry about, obviously, in the dollar amount of those court actions. So this is a good thing for Queensland, because there has been the last couple of quarters have been fairly rocky off the back of some natural disasters that occurred early last year, and also downturn in the mining boom that they experienced up there. So hopefully we're seeing them get back on their feet. In New South Wales, extremely positive. There's been a big reduction in the number of court actions that have taken place, and also a decent size 11% reduction in the value of the court actions that have taken place as well. So New South Wales, we're seeing and hearing from our customers alike is that conditions are as good as they've ever been. People seem to be spending a little bit more money. People seem to be paying their bills, importantly, on time or close to within terms. So this is fantastic news for those businesses in New South Wales, or trading with New South Wales related businesses. WA, a slight increase again in the number of actions that have taken place, and also a decent sized increase in the dollar values that have taken place. Again, we know that WA has been very up and down over the last few years. They're extremely exposed to that mining boom and bust, we should say. Property prices have obviously been getting hammered of late. So it's certainly something to take into consideration, though I think that most people, regardless of what industry you're in, no matter how big you are, trading with any sort of WA business, you would be well aware of the need to be quite vigilant, particularly those smaller businesses that might be themselves exposed to one or two mining sites or mining companies, for instance. Victoria, like like New South Wales, again, another drop after we could see there, a solid year of increases, and then Q4 last year and Q1 this year, we've seen back-to-back drops, which is fantastic news. SA almost, remaining neutral here, a really, really slight increase in the number of actions that have taken place and a decrease in the value of those actions that have occurred. One of the real key indicators for us is looking at the number of unincorporated entities that have failed. So CreditorWatch obviously provides credit reports on unincorporated entities. So they are sole traders, trusts, partnerships. They're the type of entities that you would almost 100% of the time associate with a micro or a small business. So we'll provide credit reports on those scores. We'll report on payment defaults, court actions, and whatnot. So it's a really important segment of the market that often goes unreported. Typically these economic reports or similar things to the Small Business Risk Review will look at incorporated entities, companies only. It's very important that we look at unincorporated entities as well. So what we've seen here is a 56% decrease in the number of cancelled unincorporated entities. Now, I use the term cancelled because that's the term that is used for the status of a business. They're not registered and deregistered, which is what you get with companies. You get active and cancelled. So 56% decrease is great news. We get to the last one, and obviously the most important one that we're seeing at the moment is average payment defaults. Now, after, what are we looking at? 3 consecutive quarters of decreases in the number of, in the value of defaults, in the number of defaults. What we're seeing now is an increase. While we don't report on the number of them taking place, CreditorWatch is growing at such a rate that if we reported on the number of them, we'd be seeing increases every single quarter. We do look at the value, which is the best indicator for us to report on. So seeing that jump after 3 consecutive quarters of decreases is certainly something that we've taken notice of. It's something that our small business customers in particular have flagged with us, that they're seeing payment terms slow down for themselves, so they're starting to register defaults. And as we've always said in the past, what we typically see is we'll see a payment default get registered. That will then generally get either referred onto a debt collector, so you see a debt collection notice, or most small businesses will just go straight to court, get a statement of claim issued. They're typically smaller amounts, sub sort of 25K. They don't typically feel like they need to get a debt collector involved. They would prefer just to go straight to a lawyer or represent themselves and issue that statement of claim straight away. But that can often take sort of 6 months after a default has been registered. So whenever we do see an increase of any kind in payment defaults within CreditorWatch, we like to flag it with our customers, our listeners, our webinar attendees, that it has occurred. Certainly something to be aware of. Make sure that you are monitoring your customers to see if any defaults are being registered against them. It's really important that we remain as vigilant as possible, particularly when dealing with SMEs. If you've got a decent exposure to them within your portfolio, and typically most companies have that 80-20 rule. You do want to be keeping a closer eye on them to see if they're paying all of their other suppliers that are out there. CreditorWatch is obviously increasing the number of customers that we have, so we're getting a really, really good feel for getting this information together from a wide range of industries and different sized businesses, and being able to report on trends almost in real time when we see them. So those monitoring risk alert emails that you receive are certainly extremely valuable. So a fairly quick one today. I don't usually like to dwell on too much of this or talk too much fluff. Just get the data out there and show you exactly what we're seeing. As I said, we've got an article on our blog, so please do jump on there to have a little bit more of a look. It also includes a link to the Small Business Risk Review. I do encourage you to please share it around. Obviously, the more people we can get looking at it, hopefully the more customers we do pick up and the more data that we're able to report on, both as to our CreditorWatch customers, but also within the Small Business Risk Review itself. We do have a number of webinars coming up over the next month. We've got Benefits of Data Washing happening on the 16th of May. That's being hosted by our National Sales Director, Matt Jackson, who's just completed an Ironman over the weekend. He actually placed first in his age group, which is a tremendous achievement. For those of you who aren't aware of what an Ironman is, it is almost 4Ks of swimming, 180K bike cycle, and then you finish with just a marathon, 42 kilometers of running. So he did over 9 hours, about 9 hours and 20, I think it was, to finish first. He'll be hosting that one. We've got Understanding Bankruptcy Plus taking place on the 5th of June. And then for our smaller businesses out there who use Xero and MYOB or are considering moving to Xero and MYOB, we're going to run a session on connecting your accounting packages with CreditorWatch and take you through the benefits of doing that as well. So any interest in there, please use that link once we send it through, or jump on the website and you'll be able to find the webinars link as well. So thanks again, everyone who joined today. Much appreciated. If you did have any questions, please feel free to submit them. I'll leave this open for a little bit. And what I'll also do is I'll just throw up another poll as well, just asking, how did you find today's webinar? Was it useful? Was it average? Was it bad? Please be, brutally honest. We want to continue to make changes to these. We want to improve them. If there's anything that you feel that you would like to see us report on, a different data set, anything at all, please put that in the question and answer box. You don't necessarily have to ask a question. Just say, hey, Patrick, or hey, CreditorWatch, I'd love to see X included in future webinars, in future small business risk reviews, or even if you'd like to see a specific webinar from us, please do that. We love getting feedback from our customers as well. Okay, great. I'm going to shut this poll down as the majority of you have responded to it, so thank you for that. And I'm going to leave you for today. So have a fantastic week. Apologies for my nasal voice today. Battling a little bit of a cold. Thank you very much.